Right now, somewhere in your home, there's something waiting for you. A text message you never replied to, a course you promised yourself you'd start, a business idea you've been thinking about for months, a book sitting on your shelf, slowly collecting dust. And every night, you tell yourself the same thing, I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week becomes next month, and before you know it, another year has quietly slipped away. But here's the question I really want you to think about. Are you actually lazy, or is your brain quietly pulling you away from the very future you're trying to build? Stay with me until the end, because once you understand what's really happening inside your brain, you'll finally know why you've been putting things off, and more importantly, how to stop. Let's clear up one of the biggest misconceptions right away. Laziness isn't your problem. Most people blame themselves. They say, I have no discipline. I'm just not motivated. Maybe I'm not meant to be successful. But neuroscience tells a very different story. What's really happening is that your brain is constantly negotiating between what feels good right now and what will benefit you in the future. And far too often, the present wins. That's what procrastination really is. It's not simply delaying a task. It's knowing something matters, knowing it needs your attention, knowing it could improve your life, and still choosing to postpone it. Not because you don't care, but because comfort is easier to reach for than discomfort. Procrastination doesn't steal your day, it steals your future. And this isn't a new problem. Human beings have struggled with procrastination for centuries. The difference is, people in the past didn't carry the world's biggest distraction in their pocket. Today, your phone competes for your attention every minute of the day. Social media, short-form videos, notifications, messages, endless entertainment, they're all designed to keep you engaged for as long as possible. And the longer they keep your attention, the easier it becomes to postpone the work that actually changes your life. So what's happening inside your brain? Let's simplify it. You have a system inside your brain called the limbic system. Think of it as your emotional brain. It constantly looks for comfort, pleasure, and immediate rewards. Then there's another part called the prefrontal cortex. This is your brain's executive center. It's responsible for planning, making rational decisions, staying focused, solving problems, and thinking about long-term goals. Now imagine these two systems pulling you in opposite directions. One says, open the book. The other says, just check your phone for 5 minutes. One says, finish the project. The other whispers, you deserve a little break first. And somehow that 5-minute break turns into an hour, then 2 hours, then an entire day. That's not because you're weak. It's because your emotional brain often overrides the logical part of your brain. This is also one of the reasons teenagers often make impulsive decisions. Their prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for judgment, planning, and self-control, is still developing. Their emotions naturally have more influence over their decisions. Not everyone procrastinates in the same way. Most procrastinators fall into one of 4 categories. See if you recognize yourself. The first type, the last-minute performer. This person believes they work best under pressure. They wait until the deadline is almost here before they finally begin. Sometimes they somehow manage to finish everything, but most of the time their work isn't as good as it could have been. They live with unnecessary stress, constant anxiety, and they often lose valuable opportunities simply because they waited too long. The second type, the perfection seeker. They're always waiting for the perfect conditions, the perfect time, the perfect laptop, the perfect course, the perfect opportunity. The problem is, perfect conditions almost never exist. And while they're waiting for everything to become perfect, months, and sometimes years, quietly pass them by. The third type, the busy procrastinator. This person looks productive all day long. They're answering emails, checking notifications, watching videos, scrolling social media, organizing files, researching endlessly. Their schedule looks full, but when the day ends, the one task that actually mattered is still unfinished. They're busy, but they're not making meaningful progress. And finally, the fourth type, the opportunity chaser. Every new idea excites them. Monday, they're planning an online business. Wednesday, they want to become a content creator. Friday, they're learning crypto. Next week, they've already moved on to something completely different. They keep starting, but they rarely finish. And because success usually belongs to people who stay consistent, they never give themselves enough time to see real results. Why do intelligent, capable people still procrastinate? Most of the time, it comes down to a few predictable reasons: instant gratification, comfort, constant digital distractions, weak self-discipline, and a brain that naturally values immediate rewards over future benefits. The good news? Every one of these patterns can be changed. But there's a mistake almost everyone makes while trying to fix procrastination, and most people never even notice they're making it. Let's fix that right now. If procrastination isn't laziness, then how do you actually overcome it? The answer isn't another productivity hack. It isn't buying a new planner. It isn't downloading another app. Real change starts with something much simpler: awareness. You can't change a habit you refuse to acknowledge. I'll be honest with you, I've made this exact mistake myself. I once bought an online course, told myself I'd finish it this weekend, and it sat there, half done, for almost 8 months. It wasn't because I didn't have time. It was because starting again meant feeling like a beginner, and that felt uncomfortable, so I kept avoiding it instead. So here's the first thing I want you to do, and I mean right now, not after this video. Take out a piece of paper, not your phone, an actual piece of paper. Then write down every unfinished task that's been sitting in the back of your mind, that project you've been avoiding, that phone call you still haven't made, the course you bought but never started, the business idea you've been thinking about for months. Write down all of it. Because the moment you move those thoughts out of your head and onto paper, you immediately feel less overwhelmed. Next to every task, write one simple question. Why does this matter? Why is this important to you? How will your life improve once it's finished? What problem will it solve? What opportunity will it create? When your brain understands the purpose behind a task, taking action becomes much easier. There's another piece to this. Decide exactly when you're going to do it. Decide exactly where you're going to do it. The more specific your plan is, the greater the chance you'll actually follow through. Think about how many people buy a gym membership in January, go twice, and then never go back. It's rarely because they don't want to get fit. It's because they're picturing the entire transformation, months of workouts, a completely different body, instead of just the next 30 minutes. That's the same mistake people make with almost every goal. They look at one giant project instead of the small steps hiding inside it. Your brain often sees huge goals as overwhelming. Huge goals feel intimidating. Small actions feel achievable. So stop telling yourself, I need to finish the whole project today. Instead say, I'm only going to work on it for the next 20 minutes. Small victories create momentum. Momentum creates consistency, and consistency changes lives. Another powerful habit: focus on one important task at a time. Not 5, not 10, just one. Multitasking might make you feel busy, but studies show it actually reduces focus and lowers the quality of your work. Your attention is your greatest asset. Protect it. That also means protecting it from distractions. You know the feeling. You open your laptop to finally start that report, and somehow, without even deciding to, you've opened YouTube instead. That's not a coincidence. That's just your brain picking the path of least resistance the second it gets a chance. If your phone keeps stealing your attention, move it out of the room. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Create an environment where focusing becomes easier than getting distracted. Discipline becomes much easier when temptation isn't sitting right beside you. At the end of every day, take 5 minutes to review your progress. Ask yourself, what did I accomplish today? What distracted me? What can I improve tomorrow? Tracking your progress gives your brain evidence that you're moving forward. And progress, even slow progress, creates motivation. One more thing, be patient with yourself. Most people expect dramatic results after only a few days. That's not how real change works. Success is rarely built through massive breakthroughs. It's built through small actions repeated consistently over time. Even if your progress feels painfully slow, keep going, because consistency will always outperform occasional bursts of motivation. Actually, pause for a second. Think of just one task you've been putting off for way too long. Got it in your head? Good. Hold on to that, because we're going to come back to it. And here's something I hope you never forget. The bigger your purpose becomes, the smaller your excuses become. When your reason is powerful enough, your excuses slowly lose their influence. A different question comes in here. How do I break a bad habit? But honestly, that's the wrong question. A better question is, why did we build that habit in the first place? And why, even after knowing it's hurting us, do we keep repeating it? This is uncomfortable to admit. Most people want the reward. Very few people want the process. Everyone wants confidence. Few people want the discipline that builds confidence. Everyone wants success. Few people want the daily habits that create success. The outcome always begins with the habit, If you want a stronger mind, better health, or a better future, you have to practice the behaviors that produce those results, even when they feel uncomfortable at first. Want to wake up earlier? Then stop making it easy to stay in bed. Put your alarm across the room. Force yourself to stand up to turn it off. Once you're already out of bed, it's much harder to crawl back under the blanket. Need to clean your room? Don't spend an hour thinking about it. Pick up the broom. Start. Bathroom needs cleaning? Clean it. Trash can overflowing? Take it outside. Action creates momentum. Thinking alone never does. Stop waiting until you feel like it, because most of the time, that feeling never arrives. The same principle applies to every bad habit you have. Take a sheet of paper. On one side, write down the habit you want to get rid of. On the other side, write down the habit you want to replace it with. Because here's something most people don't realize. You don't eliminate habits. You replace them. Your brain doesn't like empty spaces. If you simply try to remove a habit without replacing it, you usually fall right back into the old pattern. But when you consistently practice a healthier behavior, something remarkable begins to happen. Little by little, your brain starts building new neural pathways. The old pattern grows weaker. The new one grows stronger. That's how real, lasting change happens. Not overnight, but one decision at a time. And here's the part most people won't admit out loud. Many people say they want to change, but deep down they really don't. They love the idea of becoming successful. They love imagining a better future. But they don't actually want to go through the discomfort that change requires. And that's why their lives stay exactly the same. There's an old story I once heard. A man ended every prayer with the exact same words. God, make me a better person, but not today. Starting tomorrow. It's funny, but it's also painfully accurate, because that's exactly how many of us live. I'll start on Monday. I'll start next month. I'll start after the holidays. I'll start when life slows down. But tomorrow has a strange habit. It never arrives. Life changes the moment you stop negotiating with yourself. If you truly want a different future, two things have to happen. First, you have to become dissatisfied with staying where you are. Not in a negative way, but in a way that pushes you to grow. Because comfort rarely creates progress. Second, you have to take the first step. Not the 10th, not the perfect one, just the first one. Transformation doesn't begin when everything becomes clear. Transformation begins the moment you decide to move. If you're unhappy with your current situation, good. That discomfort can become your greatest source of motivation. But if you're comfortable making excuses, comfortable delaying everything, comfortable settling, then don't expect your life to suddenly change. Every excuse has a cost. Most people only realize it once it's too late to get that time back. That's why there's no secret formula, no magical morning routine, no perfect productivity hack. At some point, you simply have to make a decision. Then build your environment so doing the right thing becomes easier than doing the wrong thing. That's how lasting habits are built. So tonight, set that alarm, place it across the room, and tomorrow morning get up, not because you feel motivated, but because you've made a decision. Now before we move on, if this video is giving you a new perspective, take 2 seconds and hit that like button. And if you're serious about improving your mindset, your productivity, and your future, subscribe to the channel. Every week we dive into practical ideas backed by psychology, neuroscience, and real-world experience to help you become the best version of yourself. Now let's keep going, because what I'm about to show you next might be the most important part of this entire video. A single technique that changes how impossible a goal feels. Imagine standing in front of a mountain of unfinished work, projects, goals, dreams, things you've wanted to accomplish for months, maybe even years. Every time you think about starting, your brain immediately feels overwhelmed. Where do I even begin? This is way too much. Maybe I'll start tomorrow. Sound familiar? If it does, the next technique might completely change the way you approach every goal for the rest of your life. It's called the one oil barrel technique. Whether every historical detail is perfectly documented or not, the lesson behind this story is powerful. A well-known trainer once shared a fascinating story in one of his books. Years ago, crossing a massive desert in Algeria was considered incredibly dangerous. Nearly 500 miles of nothing but sand, no roads, no landmarks. Many travelers lost their way and never made it home, overwhelmed long before the halfway point, simply because the destination looked impossibly far away. Then someone came up with an incredibly simple solution. Every 5 kilometers, they placed a large oil barrel, roughly the distance a person can clearly see ahead. Suddenly, travelers no longer had to think about crossing 500 miles. They only had one job: reach the next barrel. That's it. When they arrived, another barrel appeared in the distance, then another, then another. One small target at a time, they eventually crossed the entire desert. The desert didn't become smaller, the journey didn't become easier, their focus became smaller, and that changed everything. Bring it back to your own life. Your biggest dream, your business, your degree, your fitness journey, your YouTube channel, your career. To your mind, those goals often look exactly like that desert. Too big, too far away, too overwhelming. Your brain starts asking questions like, how am I ever going to finish this? How do I build something this big? What if I fail halfway through? Those questions create hesitation. Hesitation creates procrastination. And procrastination keeps dreams exactly where they started, inside your imagination. The solution? Stop staring at the entire desert. Find your next oil barrel. That's all. Remember that one task I asked you to hold on to a few minutes ago? Here's your oil barrel. Don't think about finishing it. Just think about the very next step of it. Forget the next 6 months. Forget next year. Forget 5 years from now. What's the very next step? Can you make one phone call? Write one page? Read one chapter? Record one video? Send one email? That's your oil barrel. Reach it, then look for the next one. Success is almost never about taking giant leaps. It's about taking small steps, consistently, without stopping. And that's exactly how impossible goals eventually become reality. Here's something worth noticing about yourself. When you sit down to work, what's the very first thing you reach for? The task that matters the most, or the task that feels the easiest? Those are rarely the same thing. Most of us naturally drift toward what's comfortable. We answer a few emails. We organize our desk. We scroll through social media for just a minute. We watch one more video. We tell ourselves we're getting ready to work, but deep down, we know we're avoiding the one task that actually matters. Here's a simple example. Imagine I place two things in front of you, a smartphone and a book. Which one are you going to reach for first? For most people, the answer is obvious, the phone. Because your brain knows exactly what it's going to get. Instant entertainment, instant stimulation, instant dopamine. Now compare that to the book. Reading takes effort. Understanding takes concentration. Learning requires patience. One option offers immediate pleasure. The other offers long-term growth. That's why one of the most important questions you can ask yourself every single day is this. What is the most important thing I should be doing right now? Not what do I feel like doing, not what's the easiest task, but what will make the biggest difference if I finish it today. Start there, every single time. Because every time you choose the easy task over the important one, you're strengthening the habit of procrastination. And every time you choose the important task first, you're strengthening the habit of discipline. When's the last time you actually began something the moment you thought of it, instead of waiting for a better time? Not later, not tonight, not tomorrow morning, now. People often think the hardest part of any project is finishing it. It isn't. The hardest part is starting. Because once you're moving, momentum begins working in your favor. But until you begin, your brain keeps inventing reasons to wait. The task itself usually doesn't become harder over time. You simply keep carrying the weight of avoiding it. Every day you delay, you add a little more pressure, a little more stress, a little more guilt, until eventually, the task feels far bigger than it ever was. So don't carry it, finish it. And one thing worth saying clearly, everyone procrastinates. Everyone. There isn't a single successful person on this planet who has never delayed something. We're human beings, not robots. The problem isn't procrastinating once in a while. The problem begins when procrastination becomes part of your identity. When people start saying they're always late, they never finish anything, you can't rely on them, that's no longer a bad day. That's become a habit. And habits shape your future. Studies show that young people, especially those between the ages of 14 and 29, struggle with procrastination more than almost any other age group. One reason is impossible to ignore: smartphones. Some studies estimate that the average smartphone user interacts with their phone hundreds, and in some studies even thousands of times a day. Thousands of tiny interruptions every single day. No wonder staying focused has become so difficult. And here's something many people misunderstand. Procrastination isn't a disease. It's not something you're born with. It's a learned behavioral pattern, one that becomes stronger every time you repeat it. Interestingly, the word procrastination comes from Latin. It literally refers to intentionally delaying something unpleasant, difficult, or boring. In other words, your brain isn't avoiding work, it's avoiding discomfort. Another major reason people procrastinate is a lack of self-belief. Maybe you've said these things to yourself before. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if people judge me? What if I embarrass myself? Those thoughts don't just damage confidence, they stop action before it even begins. And once action stops, procrastination quietly takes over. Here's another trap. Most meaningful goals are difficult. The easy tasks rarely change your life. Answering random notifications feels productive. Scrolling through information feels productive. Watching another motivational video feels productive. But none of those things replace actually doing the work. Knowledge without action changes nothing. That's why successful people don't ask, "What do I know?" They ask, "What am I actually doing with what I know?" Success is never created in one dramatic moment. Think about sports. A championship isn't won because of one final play. That final moment only matters because of everything that happened before it. Daily practice, small improvements, consistent effort. Success works exactly the same way. Small actions, repeated consistently over a long period of time. That's how extraordinary results are built. But there's one more reason people procrastinate, and this one is sneaky, because it usually disguises itself as a good quality. Perfectionism. It sounds like a strength, but in many cases, it's just fear wearing a different mask. Some people don't delay because they're lazy. They delay because they want everything to be perfect. They'll spend an hour rewriting a single email. They'll keep changing one sentence, then another, then another. Not because the work isn't good enough, but because they convince themselves it could always be better. Eventually, they never hit send. Perfection becomes the excuse. Progress disappears. You might know exactly what this feels like. Rewriting the same paragraph 5 times instead of just posting it and moving on. Done is almost always better than perfect. Of course, do your best. Take pride in your work. But don't let perfection become the reason your dreams stay unfinished. There's another behavior psychologists often compare to what's known as the head in the sand mindset. You've probably heard the old story about an ostrich hiding its head when danger appears. Whether the story is literally true or not, the lesson still applies. Many people deal with difficult tasks the same way. Instead of facing the problem, they pretend it isn't there. They avoid opening the email. They avoid checking the bank account. They avoid making the phone call. Because somewhere in their mind, they believe avoiding the problem will make the discomfort disappear. But reality doesn't work that way. The longer you avoid something, the bigger it becomes. Then there's something called shiny object syndrome. This one is incredibly common today. Every week there's a new business opportunity, a new investment, a new trend, a new app, a new skill, a new shortcut to success. And people jump from one thing to another, believing the next opportunity will finally change everything. But success rarely comes from chasing everything. It comes from staying committed to one meaningful direction long enough to master it. Many people also tell themselves, "I'll start when I feel motivated," but motivation is unreliable. Some mornings you'll feel unstoppable. Other mornings you won't feel like doing anything. If your life depends on motivation, your progress will always be inconsistent. Highly productive people rely more on routines than motivation. They build routines because routines keep working even when motivation disappears. So keep it simple. Just start. Then ask yourself 2 important questions. Why am I doing this? And what will my life look like once it's finished? Those 2 questions reconnect your brain with purpose. And purpose is often stronger than procrastination. When you clean your room, your environment changes. When your environment changes, your mood changes. Exercise consistently, your body becomes stronger. Your energy improves, your confidence grows. Read books regularly, your knowledge expands, your thinking becomes clearer, your conversations become deeper. Small habits create extraordinary lives. Always begin with the task that matters most. Don't save your biggest priority for the end of the day. Give it your best energy, and leave the easier tasks for when it naturally drops. Another powerful strategy, surround yourself with people who inspire growth and cut the distractions. Try a daily hour without your phone. Go outside, take a walk, spend time with family, or just work without interruptions. You'll be surprised how much you accomplish when your attention isn't being pulled in every direction. Remember, the grass usually isn't greener somewhere else. It's greener where you consistently water it. Let me leave you with a few words that have stayed with me. Procrastination is the thief of time. Edward Young. It doesn't steal one afternoon. It steals years you'll never get back. You may delay, but time will not. Benjamin Franklin. Time doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It just keeps moving, with or without you. Someday is not a day of the week. Denise Brennan Nelson. That last one is worth sitting with for a second. Someday never shows up on a calendar. It's not Monday, it's not the first of the month, it's not after the holidays. If a task only lives in someday, it's never actually scheduled, which means it's never actually going to happen, unless you give it a real day and a real time. Let's finish with what science tells us. Beyond the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex, there's one more player worth knowing, the amygdala, which processes fear and stress. When a task feels difficult or emotionally uncomfortable, your amygdala treats it like a threat, and your brain goes looking for relief, usually your phone, social media, or anything offering instant comfort. Meanwhile, enjoyable activities release dopamine right away, while difficult work pays off much later. That's why researchers describe procrastination as an emotion regulation problem, not a time management one. It's about managing your feelings, not just your schedule. Researchers like Tim Peichel and Fuchsia Serwas have studied this pattern for years. Gordon Flett and Paul Hewitt have shown perfectionism is one of the biggest reasons people delay starting, and Joseph Ferrari, one of the world's leading experts on procrastination, explains that chronic procrastination becomes a habit of sacrificing your future to feel comfortable in the present. So if we bring everything together, the message is simple. This was never really about willpower. Your brain is trying to protect you from temporary discomfort. But here's the problem. Temporary comfort often creates permanent regret, and that's why your future changes the moment you decide to act anyway. So don't wait until you feel motivated. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for next Monday, next month, or next year. And please, stop waiting for someday, because someday isn't a real day. Today is. Right now is. Even if your first step feels ridiculously small, take it. Read one page, write one paragraph, make one phone call, finish one task, clean one corner of your room, walk for 10 minutes. Open the document you've been avoiding. Just begin. If this video changed the way you think about procrastination, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who keeps saying, "I'll start tomorrow." You never know. This might be the video that helps them finally take the first step. And if you found value here, subscribe for more videos on psychology, neuroscience, productivity, and personal growth. But before you do any of that, I want you to do one thing first. The moment this video ends, go do the one task you've been holding on to this entire time, the one I asked you to think about earlier. Not tomorrow, not in an hour, right after this ends. It doesn't have to be finished, it just has to be started. Then come back here, and in the comments write just one word, done. Your future is being built by the choices you make today, not by the plans you keep postponing. Because your new life doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins the moment you decide to take action. The clock is already moving. The only question left is, will you move with it?